after racial slur.
And you want to know where I was when all this happened?
I don't care.
At work, monkey.
I don't care where you were.
At morgue.
It's at this point in the tape you can see the officer reach for his firearm.
Have you ever pictured a scenario where your treatment is dictated by the color of your skin, where belonging to a specific racial group subjects you to discrimination and hate? Regrettably, this grim reality endures in certain parts of the world. In this video, we will shed light on 10 countries where racism remains a troubling issue. In these countries, you won't have to worry about only the media and the locals, but even the law officers who promote racial profiling. The stories of racial profiling are stark reminders that walking on the streets as a black person can be a perilous activity. In these countries, members of the black community often find themselves subjected to unwarranted stops, searches, and even arrests solely because of their skin color. In the next few minutes, we will expose the disturbing realities faced by black individuals in these 10 countries through personal accounts, statistics, and historical context. We aim to shed light on the harsh truths that often remain hidden beneath the surface. Additionally, to bolster our endeavors, please consider clicking the like button, sharing the video, and subscribing to aid in the channel's expansion. Your support holds significant value for us. Number 10, Italy. When planning to explore various countries, numerous factors warrant consideration. Cultural richness, culinary delights, scenic beauty, and the diverse array of individuals you'll encounter. Italy might be high on your travel list, known for its historical sites, delicious cuisine, and charming streets. However, there's another side to Italy that's important to acknowledge: racism. This is a problem that has been highlighted time and again, causing concern among locals and visitors alike. Racism is an issue that persists in various corners of the world, and Italy is unfortunately no exception. Instances of racism have become more visible in recent years, leading to widespread public outcry and condemnation. It's important to note that there are voices within the country, like Paula Igonu, a volleyball player of Nigerian descent, who acknowledges that Italy has been dealing with racism, but believes that things are gradually improving. On the other hand, people like Lilian Thuram, a former professional footballer from France, have expressed a more pessimistic view, suggesting that racism has escalated, particularly under the influence of the current right-wing coalition government led by Giorgia Meloni. One incident that shocked many occurred at a popular music contest where Paula Igonu candidly stated that Italy has racism, but is slowly progressing. However, this optimism clashes with reports of racial incidents, such as the case of football player Romelu Lukaku, who was targeted by racist chants from Juventus fans, resulting in the city of Turin issuing 171 restraining orders. See this for yourself. An Italian football pundit was sacked after racist remarks about Romelu Lukaku on live television.
Il sosia di Zapata dell'Atalanta.
Esatto.
Questi hanno qualcosa in più degli altri, non c'è niente da fare. E poi è un uomo che alla fine gol li fa. E poi questo ti trascina la squadra. Questo nell'1 contro 1 ti uccide. Se gli vai contro cadi per terra. O c'hai 10 banane qui per mangiare che gliele dai, se no...
One of the challenges in addressing racism in Italy is the lack of comprehensive data. The government does not actively collect statistics on race and ethnicity, making it harder to gauge the extent of the issue. This absence of data sets Italy apart from other European countries where such information is readily available. Without a clear picture of the problem, it's difficult to implement effective solutions. A UNICEF poll in 2021 unveiled disheartening findings. Around 60% of young people in Italy admitted to having unconscious racist biases. This suggests that even though individuals may not consciously hold discriminatory views, these biases still shape their behavior. Additionally, the same poll revealed that a staggering 74% of migrants reported experiencing discrimination while in Italy. These experiences range from subtle instances like strangers clutching their bags when a person of color enters a shop to more overt cases of verbal and physical abuse. While Italy boasts a wealth of cultural treasures and a vibrant atmosphere, it's also grappling with racism, so you might want to reset your expectations with this country. Number 9. Spain. When you think of Spain, you might conjure up images of vibrant culture, beautiful beaches, and bustling cities. However, beneath its breathtaking allure lies a disturbing truth that might make you rethink your travel plans. Spain, a country that has been home to diverse communities for decades, including Black Spaniards and foreigners of color, is grappling with a deep-seated problem of racism. This is not an issue confined to a few isolated incidents. It's a pervasive problem that has led many to dub Spain as one of the top 10 racist countries you'd rather avoid. For years, individuals of African descent who hold Spanish citizenship and people of color living in Spain have voiced their distressing experiences of racial discrimination. Despite the country's multicultural makeup, instances of racist treatment have become all too common. Abraham Jimenez and Noah, a Cuban writer who made Spain his new home in 2021, has been documenting his personal encounters with racism. Shockingly, he has recorded a staggering 182 incidents so far, from being unjustly followed around stores to facing unwarranted ID checks on public transport. Noah's accounts paint a distressing picture of a society that seems to have turned a blind eye to its own prejudices. Even more heart-wrenching is the fact that Noah's own child with lighter skin receives compliments that his father is denied simply due to his darker complexion. The world of sports, often seen as a unifying force, has not been spared from this ugly reality. In a recent game involving Real Madrid and Valencia in May 2023, Vinicius Jr., a talented young player, faced horrifying racial slurs from opposition supporters. Cries of "monkey" echoed through the stadium, a deeply offensive taunt that speaks volumes about the pervasive racism lurking within Spanish society. This incident is not an isolated one for Vinicius. He has spoken out about the continuous episodes of racial abuse he has suffered during his time in Spain. Even outside the stadium, the ugly face of racism emerges. In early 2023, a group of men went as far as hanging an effigy of Vinicius from a bridge, a shocking display of hatred that can't be ignored. The most concerning aspect of this situation is the apparent lack of action from those in power. Despite being a nation that prides itself on progress and inclusion, Spain's lawmakers and law enforcement agencies have not done enough to tackle this deeply entrenched problem. The pleas of the marginalized community seem to have fallen on deaf ears, leaving them frustrated and disillusioned. As a traveler, Spain may not seem like the idyllic destination it's often portrayed to be. The country's dark underbelly of racism is a stark reminder that prejudice can lurk beneath even the most charming facades. When considering your travel plans, it's crucial to take into account the lived experiences of those who have been subjected to racial discrimination in Spain. Choosing to visit a place that fails to adequately address racism might inadvertently condone such behavior. Until Spain takes substantial steps to combat racism and create a more welcoming environment for all, it might be wise to think twice before adding it to your travel bucket list. After all, no beautiful landscape or historic landmark can compensate for the emotional toll of experiencing or witnessing racial discrimination. Number 8, Cuba. At first glance, Cuba may appear as an ideal destination for an island getaway. It boasts some of the Caribbean's most stunning beaches, celebrated for their pristine waters and soft sands. Additionally, its rich culinary offerings, cultural diversity, and top-notch entertainment further enhance its appeal. Nevertheless, there are aspects of the country's reality that might give one pause, especially if you're a person of color. Cuba has often been celebrated for its rich culture, vibrant music, and historical significance. But beneath the surface, there exists a complex and concerning issue: racism. Cuba's reputation as a heavily policed nation has garnered attention, and not for the right reasons. Citizens, regardless of their ethnicity, can find themselves subjected to random detentions on the streets. This unsettling practice is even more pronounced for Black Cubans, particularly when they are seen in the company of white foreigners. If you're a white American woman traveling with a Black partner or Black friends, you might find yourself shocked by the frequency with which they are stopped and questioned about their interactions with you. The Cuban government seems to possess an almost obsessive desire to ensure the safety of white tourists, which can lead to uncomfortable and disheartening encounters for those affected. Even Black Americans, who might have assumed a level of shared identity in Cuba, can find themselves mistakenly targeted by the police. The late Mark Sawyer, an African-American Cuba scholar, recounted his experiences of being stopped frequently. He revealed that his mere possession of a passport redirected the police officer's suspicions towards his intent, insinuating that he might be a troublemaking Cuban American. Such experiences shed light on the pervasive nature of this issue. Roberto Zerbano, a prominent black Cuban intellectual, has been an outspoken critic of ongoing racism within the country. He has consistently highlighted the harassment faced by black men on the streets of Havana. Zerbano's commentaries, particularly after the passing of Hansel Hernandez, an unarmed black Cuban who was shot in the back and met his end at the hand of the police for no justifiable reason, underscored the distressing reality faced by black Cubans. When considering a journey to Cuba, it's important to consider the experiences of individuals who have encountered the darker sides of the island. While the allure of Cuba's charm and history is undeniable, the country's issues with racial profiling and discrimination are equally undeniable. If you are a person of color, especially black, you might find yourself subjected to uncomfortable encounters with law enforcement due to the color of your skin. This undercurrent of racial tension raises serious questions about the inclusivity and warmth that travelers hope to encounter in a foreign land. Number 7, Brazil. Beneath the rhythm of samba and the allure of stunning beaches lies a more somber reality. Brazil stands as one of the top 10 countries with a distressing racism problem that can make visiting a deeply unsettling experience. It might be surprising, especially given Brazil's image as a melting pot of different races, but beneath the surface, a deep-seated racial divide persists. This divide stems from a long history that began after the abolition of slavery in 1888. Rather than actively working to integrate black people into society, the Brazilian authorities crafted a carefully constructed narrative of racial harmony. They aim to portray Brazil as a unique haven where all races coexist peacefully. However, this narrative hides a painful reality that many Brazilians, particularly black and mixed-race individuals, continue to suffer in the 21st century. Statistics unveil a sobering reality regarding racial inequality in Brazil. Black and brown Brazilians bear the brunt of police violence, lack access to education, and face limited representation in decision-making circles. Shockingly, they make up a staggering 64% of the unemployed population and are almost 3 times more likely to fall victim to homicides. This staggering inequality is reflected in their income as well. On average, they earn only half of what their white counterparts do. A glance at Brazil's demographics reveals the intricacies of its racial landscape. The population comprises about 40% mixed-race individuals, 5% black, and 54% white. These classifications are often based on appearance rather than strict ancestry, leading to an intricate web of identity. The divisions are not confined to statistics alone. They permeate all aspects of life, from education to the job market. While many Brazilians now acknowledge the existence of racial prejudice and discrimination, the fight against racism remains an uphill battle. Racial inequalities persist in the labor market, with non-whites facing hurdles in pursuing upward mobility. Even with laws against racism in place, subtle forms of discrimination remain deeply embedded. A hierarchy of races has taken root in the collective consciousness, perpetuating inequality in ways both visible and insidious. In the past few years, racial tensions have flared, exacerbated by the election of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. His inflammatory rhetoric has fueled animosity, sparking clashes between different racial groups. Shockingly, despite a large number of Brazilians identifying as black, their representation in positions of power is disproportionately low. Black people constitute just 18% of Congress and a mere 4.7% of executives in major companies. Vice President Hamilton Mourão's assertion that racism doesn't exist in Brazil underscores the state's denial of its deep-rooted issues. This denial only perpetuates the suffering of black Brazilians as they continue to face systemic racism and discrimination on a daily basis. So, while Brazil's allure and stunning beaches are undeniable, it's essential to acknowledge the shadows lurking beneath the surface. Its history of racial inequality, persistent discrimination, and stark racial disparities make it one of the 10 countries where confronting racism might be an unwelcome but necessary part of the journey. Number 6, Morocco. Offering an incredible adventure through its varied landscapes and vibrant culture, Morocco reveals a less discussed aspect, a lingering shadow stemming from centuries of involvement in the trans-Saharan slave trade. Over the centuries, Morocco participated in the trans-Saharan slave trade, which has left a lasting impact. Unfortunately, Anti-black racism still exists today, even though the issue is often denied or ignored by non-black Moroccans. In daily life, racist terms and derogatory labels are used to refer to black Moroccans, diminishing their worth and humanity. This language, rooted in historical prejudices, reflects a lack of understanding and empathy. Dehumanizing black individuals by comparing them to animals like monkeys and pigs is not uncommon in Morocco, perpetuating the practice of animalizing them and reinforcing harmful stereotypes. This treatment is especially targeted at migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, making them feel like outsiders. They can be called curd monkey, Kanksir pig, Aquilami al-Bashar, cannibal, and Haiwan, animal. They may be greeted by the sounds monkeys supposedly make, which is described as guera guera. The heritage of black Moroccans is frequently denied and accosted with the veiled attack of the phrase "Menenti," "Where are you from?" said by their fellow citizens, as if true Moroccans are all white. Black Moroccans often face questions about their origins that imply they don't belong in the country. This exclusionary attitude denies their heritage and makes it harder for them to feel like valued members of society. Surprisingly, the history of slavery, the diversity of the population, and racism are not taught in schools or discussed openly. This silence perpetuates ignorance and prevents progress in addressing discrimination. While the exact number of black Moroccans isn't known due to a lack of official statistics, they make up a significant part of the population. The trans-Saharan slave trade played a role in shaping this demographic. While navigating through the breathtaking landscapes and historical landmarks of Morocco, it's important to be aware of the deep-rooted issue of racism that persists. While progress has been made, the shadow of history still affects the lives of black Moroccans. Number 5, USA. This might come as a surprise to some viewers, but surely many of you will find it obvious. When you set foot in the United States, a land often touted as the land of opportunity and freedom, you might be confronted with a sobering truth that many would rather ignore. America's struggles with racism are deep-rooted, pervasive, and undeniable. It's an uncomfortable reality that has come to the forefront time and time again, painting a picture of a nation grappling with its ideals. The tragic demise of African Americans in 2020 at the hands of a police officer in Minneapolis sent shockwaves around the globe. This heart-wrenching incident not only exposed the deeply ingrained racism within American institutions, but also triggered a larger conversation about the realities faced by black immigrants in the country. While the majority of black Americans are descendants of those who were forcibly brought to the U.S. as slaves, a substantial portion, nearly 5 million people, are black immigrants who arrived in pursuit of the American dream. However, the promise of a better life often meets the harsh reality of systemic racism. Consider the recent case of Patrick Lyoya, a 26-year-old who fled the Democratic Republic of Congo with his family 8 years ago, seeking refuge and opportunity in the U.S. His story unfortunately ended in tragedy when he was fatally shot by a police officer in Grand Rapids, Michigan, during a routine traffic stop. The incident was captured on camera, revealing a horrifying struggle between Lyoya and the officer. Despite the officer's attempts to use a taser, the confrontation ended with a fatal gunshot to Lyoya's head. Such incidents are not anomalies but symptoms of a broader issue, the deeply ingrained systematic racism that affects every facet of American society. This racism is more than just isolated acts of discrimination. It's a web of policies, practices, and attitudes that perpetuate inequality. From racial profiling and biased policing to disparities in education, housing, and employment opportunities, black and brown individuals face hurdles that their white counterparts often do not. Historical context further illuminates the gravity of this issue. Centuries of slavery, segregation, and institutionalized discrimination have left scars that persist today. The so-called American dream has often been a mirage for black and brown communities as the legacy of systemic racism continues to hinder progress and advancement. While the USA is one of the best vacation spots, you might want to think really hard about moving around in this country if you're black. Number 4, France. With approximately 90 million annual visitors, France is the world's most popular tourist destination. Stunning locations like the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre Museum, or a stroll through the streets of Paris is a thrilling experience for most people. However, despite its rich history and culture, the European nation carries a shadow of racism that cannot be ignored. While it may not be immediately apparent to outsiders, there's a troubling undercurrent that taints the experience for many. Despite celebrating milestones and combating racism, recent observations reveal that this issue hasn't entirely dissipated. The COVID-19 pandemic inadvertently provided fertile ground for harmful anti-Semitic conspiracy theories to flourish. Additionally, political campaigns have reignited discussions about migration and security, often with concerning undertones. The backdrop of these events underscores the fact that racist and xenophobic sentiments persist. An important aspect of this scenario is within French society. Racism often lurks beneath the surface, hidden behind a smiling facade. This subtle racism manifests itself in everyday scenarios where black individuals are relegated to roles such as back office staff or cleaning personnel. This reality is hard to ignore when witnessing the stark divide in occupation and opportunities. This creates a disheartening narrative, one where black and brown people play an integral role in the vibrancy of the city, but remain marginalized and invisible. This year, 2022, we saw France celebrate the 50th anniversary of the enactment of the law of July 1, 1972, which penalizes racist insult, defamation, and incitement to discrimination, hatred, or racial violence, as well as the 51st anniversary of the ratification of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. However, France still struggles with racism, so you might want to keep an eye out while enjoying your vacation trip. Number 3, Mexico. Upon entering Mexico, you're immersing yourself in a country where the collision of racism and classism has deeply influenced society. It's a truth that's often masked by vibrant landscapes and rich cultures, yet one that cannot be ignored. Mexico, a land of contrasts, harbors a shadowy side of racism that casts a long and troubling shadow amidst the bustling streets and festive celebrations. A disturbing pattern emerges while racism is prevalent in every aspect of life. You will notice it most commonly in the media. Advertising billboards flash images that subtly or sometimes not so subtly weave racism and classism into the very fibers of society. In advertisements spanning from beer and car commercials to department store promotions and supermarket ads, the dominance of white individuals serves as a haunting presence. It suggests to economically disadvantaged Mexicans that achieving whiteness is the key to escaping poverty, an ideal that seems out of reach. This advertising onslaught isn't just a casual occurrence, it's a glaring reminder of the deep-seated divisions that plagued the country. Remember the 2018 scandal involving Indio beer? The campaign featured fair-skinned Mexicans wearing shirts that played with the derogatory term pinche indio, an insult hurled at indigenous people. The shirts were altered to read orgullosamente indio, or proudly Indian. Yet the campaign's creators oddly believed that having white individuals assume indigenous identity would effectively combat discrimination. Comparable instances of lack of sensitivity are prevalent in advertisements outside of Mexico. Advertisements for Salvadoran soda, Colombian laundry detergent, and even the popular elite toilet paper branding across Latin America all convey the notion that being white is marketable. This unsettling trend is rooted in the societal bias that places white skin on a pedestal, exuding an air of superiority. The problem doesn't stop at advertisements. An unsettling reality surfaced a few months ago when employees of an upscale Mexico City steakhouse revealed a disturbing policy. The best tables were reserved for customers with lighter skin. The idea that fair-skinned patrons were being given preferential treatment wasn't entirely shocking in a country where darker complexions have historically correlated with lower incomes, reduced access to education, and limited media representation. The practice of favoring lighter-skinned individuals was a sad testament to the entrenched hierarchy. This hierarchy defines its origins in colonialism, which profoundly impacted Latin America. Just as slavery shaped the United States, the Spanish conquest some 5 centuries ago established a rigid caste system, with one's social status primarily dictated by their racial background. Even after the Mexican Revolution ended in 1917, the nation's leaders endeavored to unify a fractured society under the banner of mestizo identity, a concept embraced across Latin America. This concept portrayed the mestizo as a harmonious blend of indigenous and European virtues, yet evidence paints a different picture. A study conducted by Vanderbilt University in 2017 found that individuals with lighter skin tended to achieve higher levels of education compared to those with darker skin. Wealth was tied to skin color, with darker-skinned individuals earning substantially less. This discriminatory mindset infiltrates everyday life. Families and friends nickname the lightest member Güerito, or Little White One, while the darkest is termed Negrito, or Little Black One. Sadly, these labels can be either terms of endearment or hurtful slights. The battle against racism in Mexico is ongoing, making it one of the 10 countries where confronting these issues is a necessity, even if it's not the vacation you anticipated. Number 2, Colombia. Despite Colombia's vibrant culture and welcoming hospitality, there exists a somber reality that cannot be ignored. It is one of the 10 countries where the shadows of racism loom large, casting a heavy burden on its Afro-Colombian and indigenous populations. While strolling through the bustling streets of Bogotá or admiring the natural beauty of Chaco's Pacific Department, it becomes evident that Colombia's racial history is deeply etched into its fabric. The statistics speak volumes. Colombia is home to the second-largest population of Afro-descendants in Latin America, yet their presence remained unnoticed until the 1990s. Even though laws embracing multiculturalism were introduced in the 1990s, the journey towards social equity has been an uphill struggle. Before this, Afro-Colombians were often considered invisible and overlooked by both the state and academic disciplines. A vivid example lies in Chaco, a predominantly Afro-Colombian department where a staggering 82.1% of the population proudly embraces their heritage. However, this pride is juxtaposed against economic hardships. Gold and platinum, coveted resources, paint a stark picture of the power struggle. Chaco and Antioquia departments reign as Colombia's gold producers, a magnet for corporate interests, often international ones. Canadian, US, and Brazilian companies engage in large-scale mining, while illegal operations by armed groups further compound the problem. This economic exploitation runs hand in hand with the historical undercurrents of racism, as the state's focus on development aligns more with fitting into Western ideals than with addressing the plight of its marginalized citizens. The significance of education as a basic right highlights the racial discrepancy in Colombia. When torrential rains and mining-induced river shallowness struck Chaco's rural communities, schools took a severe hit. The Colombian state's indifference resulted in Black and indigenous children losing months of access to education. Impoverished teachers improvised amid flooded classrooms, using sunlight to salvage soaked books. In stark contrast, privileged white and mestizo students in the capital city Bogotá enjoyed uninterrupted learning. This gaping inequality exposes the harsh reality of a racist system. Colombia's racism extends far beyond education. It taints political chambers, healthcare facilities, agricultural sectors, and trade institutions. The indigenous and Afro-Colombian communities are stranded on the fringes, their representation tokenized rather than substantive. Even as the global Black Lives Matter movement reverberates, Colombia remains reluctant to confront its history of discrimination and systemic bias. If you have Colombia on your list of vacation spots, you might want to reconsider and go somewhere else that will give you a great experience. Number 1, Switzerland. Switzerland stands out as one of the premier tourist destinations globally, thanks to its delightful weather, stunning alpine landscapes, and iconic Swiss delicacies such as cheeses and chocolates, widely regarded as the finest globally, along with its renowned watchmaking industry. Nonetheless, the country might be one of the worst places to visit if you're Black. Recent revelations expose a serious problem with racism against people of African descent that cannot be ignored. A recent report presented to the UN Human Rights Council has shed light on this unsettling problem, revealing instances of discrimination that range from shocking police brutality to distressing everyday situations. Switzerland, though never a colonial power, has a dark historical connection to the transatlantic triangular trade, benefiting from its banks, traders, and municipalities. This legacy seems to have left a stain, as evidenced by the alarming instances highlighted in the report. Even in playgrounds, the toxic seed of racism has taken root in children's games like "Who is Afraid of the Black Man?" These seemingly innocent activities foster racially discriminatory attitudes. One glaring issue is racial profiling, where individuals are singled out based on their skin color or ethnicity. Black residents often find themselves subjected to increased police scrutiny, experiencing more frequent searches and identity checks. These encounters have led to tragic consequences, as evidenced by recent cases of Black suspects dying during or after interactions with the police. In some instances, the use of excessive force and restraint has resulted in fatalities. The statistics paint a grim picture. Reported cases of racial discrimination have surged by 30% in a single year, revealing both an alarming rise in incidents and a growing willingness among victims to come forward. Shockingly, around 7% of these incidents involved racial profiling, with nearly a third linked to public administration and police interactions. The numbers spotlight an urgent need for change. Racism's insidious presence extends beyond police interactions. Discrimination seeps into areas like housing and employment. A study from the Federal Housing Office indicates that individuals with foreign-sounding names face a response rate of less than 5% for apartment viewings. Similarly, those with Balkan-sounding or African surnames encounter a 30% higher barrier when seeking job opportunities. This bias is pervasive and insinuates itself into daily life, from subtle rejections to unspoken prejudices. In the end, while these 10 countries might boast breathtaking landscapes, alluring beaches, and renowned vacation spots, it's crucial to remember that your safety, well-being, and dignity come first. No amount of natural beauty can compensate for the hurtful discrimination that you might face based on your skin color. The world is vast, with countless destinations that welcome everyone with open arms, regardless of their background. By choosing to explore places that embrace diversity and treat all individuals with respect, you can ensure that your travels are not only enjoyable, but also enriching experiences that leave you with wonderful memories. Remember, the real treasure of any journey lies not just in the sights you see, but in the connections you make and the warmth of the welcome you receive. This brings us to the end of this video. Tell us what you think in the comment section, as we are always interested in your thoughts. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching.